I briefly mentioned once or twice what I'll be doing for shower doors. My opening is 106 inches. And if you call anywhere that does custom shower doors, well, first of all, you call anywhere that does shower doors and you say the word custom, they double the price. And then when they find out it's more than 8 foot, they double it again. I got quotes anywhere from $4,200 to $14,000 for custom shower doors. And really kind of irritated me because all they're really doing is taking 1.5 big doors. If you look at most sliding doors that you can buy and they're under about 60 inches, they're usually 2 pieces, a fixed piece and a sliding piece. And then if you look at doors that are 72, which seems to be about the biggest door you can buy standard, they're usually 3 pieces, 2 fixed, one on each end, and then a slider in the middle. And so what I wanted was something like that, 2 fixed and a slider in the middle. The problem was if I went with a 60-inch door that had a fixed and a slider and then another fixed, I came up about 6 to 8 inches short. So what I really needed was a 72-inch door or 2 72-inch doors that were only 2 pieces. And I finally found them. It's the Vigo, V-I-G-O, I guess I'm saying that right. Elan, E-L-A series. It comes with 1 slider and 1 fixed panel for a 72-inch door, which means that your fixed panel is 37.5 inches and your slider is 36 inches. So 2 37.5 inches plus a 36-inch gives me 111, which is 5 inches more than my opening, which means I'll have 2.5 inches of overlap between the door and the fixed panels. It's not a massive amount, but that's well within what most of them are. So that's what I'm gonna be doing for the door. Now, the rod that came with it, this is a slider, so everything hangs on a rod, and the rod that came with it was good for 72 inches, and I'm at 106 inches. So my first plan was to try and weld the 2 rods together. Welding machines there, MIG and a TIG. But after I got the rod and I took the ID and the OD, I realized it was a pretty standard 1-inch tubing, not 1-inch pipe, but 1-inch tubing. So I was able to pick up a 10-foot stick of 1-inch tubing from a local metal supply store and then just trim it to length. And then I just have to, I mean, it's raw, it's covered in mill scale. I just have to either chrome it or paint it. Now, you saw the shower rod there was chrome. All my fixtures are flat black, but flat black doors were $400 more than chrome doors. Don't ask me why. But 2 flat black doors then would have been $800 more than 2 chrome doors. I couldn't justify paying an $800 premium for flat black doors over chrome doors when a can of flat black paint is 15 bucks. And so that's what I'm working on right now actually, is flat blacking everything. I'm fixing to set the rod up in here and paint it. And then everything that can be powder coated is going to get powder coated. I have disassembled all of the components that go on the handles, the rollers, the hold the fixtures or the excuse me, the doors to the rod. And the only things that can't be powder coated are the rod, because it won't fit in the oven, and the back half of the rollers, because they have a bearing. And you can't powder coat bearings. You put them in the oven and the grease all melts out. They've also got this plastic roller, which I don't know if it can stand up to powder coating oven or not, but it doesn't matter because I don't feel like pressing the bearing out and back in. So just this one little chrome piece on the back here, I'll scuff that with 180 and then paint it flat black. And then everything that was in the other room will get scuffed with 180 and then powder coated flat black. Now the shower rod and the rollers that have to be painted instead of powder coated. done with flat enamel, and then I'm about ready to clear them. I'm going to use the Frameless 2K in matte. I really like the USC diamond clear coat, but it's not available in a matte, only a satin or a gloss. The bad part of the 2Ks is once you punch that in and activate it, you got to use the whole can, so you only get one shot at it, whereas the diamond is a 1K clear. But in a matte, this is what I could get, so I'm gonna give it a run, see how it goes. Well, I didn't get any video of hanging the doors, and that's probably just as well because it was a comedy of errors. It fought us tooth and nail, and it just never worked out right. I wound up having to make a lot of modifications. So when you get this door from Vigo, or these doors, if you're doing like me and combining two of them, it's probably why you're watching this video. There are 2 holes drilled in it for the fixed panels to bolt into, and they bolt in just like this. And those holes are a very specific distance from the wall. And they tell you very clearly in instructions, if you have to trim your rod, you have to trim the end that the door slides on, not the end the fixed panel is on. If you cut the end with the fixed panel, you'll no longer mate up to the wall, or in the cases of if you trim it, you won't have room. Your panel will be hitting the wall and your holes will be further towards the wall. You won't be able to get it bolted in. When I made my custom panel, what I did was I took the rod that they gave me and I set it on the ground, and I took the new rod and I shoved them both up against the wall so that they were even, and then I used a quick square to try and draw a straight line of where the holes were on one end. Then I flipped the rod over and I did it on the other end. And so in theory, when I came in here and put this rod up, the door glass would have lined up perfectly. The holes in the door glass would have lined up with the holes I drilled in the shower rod. A couple of things bit me there. I did all of my measuring and cutting before the panels were finished, when they were still in foam. And so since I had so much trouble with leveling the panels and having to put extra coats on them, I wound up being a good 1/8, almost 1/4 of an inch too long on my rod, and I had to trim it. And so immediately I've now got a problem because I trimmed my rod. I either had to trim both ends or one end. If I'd have trimmed both ends, both of them would have been a little too close. If I'd have trimmed one end, the other end should in theory fit, and the other one should be too close to the wall and need to be moved. And so I trimmed this end, and indeed the holes were too close to the wall and I couldn't mount the panel. And this one fit okay, but it was still a little too tight to the wall. I guess because I was using a quick square on a round tube, I didn't get perfect measurements. So the way they have you mount the door, if you watch the Vigo video, is you mount the fixed panel to the rod, you pick the rod and the door up together, you set them exactly where you want them on your threshold, and then you mark the ends of your rod so you know where to drill your hole. So we tried to duplicate that, except I've got 2 fixed panels. So we bolted both fixed panels on, picked the door up, set it where we want it, and marked the ends. But then when we took the doors off, mounted the rod, and then came back to try to put the doors on, they obviously wouldn't fit. That one was a little too close to the wall. That one was way too close to the wall. And so what I wound up having to do was mount the rod, remove the bolts and nuts that hold the door on, mark a new center, re-drill the hole, fill the old hole with JB weld, repaint it, and then put each door panel or fixed panel back up, and now it fits properly. I've got the right clearance on each side so that the weather stripping is in there, and it's really turned out great, but it was a huge pain. How would I do it if I were to do it over again? If I were to do it over again, I wouldn't do anything until the panels were in and they were complete. and were the right thickness. Then I would measure approximately how high my rod needed to be, take my measurement and cut my rod to length with no holes in it yet. Then I would go ahead and temporarily put my rod up using a real shallow screw right where I thought it should be. I would bring a fixed panel up, I would put the weather stripping on it, I would push it against the wall, and I would mark where on the rod to drill my new hole. I'd take that panel, set it back against the wall, bring the other one up, do the same thing, set it exactly where I want it on the threshold, mark the holes on the bar, put it back against the wall, take the bar down, take it into the shop where you can put it in a vise, and you can make sure you drill your holes very precisely, drill the holes, insert the nuts that go on the inside that slide down inside the rod, bring it back inside, then permanently mount it to the wall, then mount one fixed panel at a time to it. That would have been much easier, been a whole lot less fighting and getting whooped by a door it took us about 3 hours to get these 2 fixed panels up. And that didn't include taking the time to take the panels down one at a time and fix the holes. That was just getting it up, not even really right. It took us 3 hours because it was just such a bear with the 2 glass panels are floating. They're not attached at the bottom yet. They're flopping around on you. You've got 80 pounds on each end of this rod that you're trying to keep level and square. So if you decide to go down this path and combine 2 sliding doors into one, it saved a ton of money. I saved at least $4 grand, possibly $8 grand. But that's the lesson I learned. I would put the rod up with no holes in it, measure exactly where the holes need to be drilled, take it back down and drill the holes, and then put it back up. So one real quick video to wrap up the shower door. As you can see, the shower is complete and we're using it now. The sliding door is on. That was actually really simple to do. It's not part of the sliding door. That's a magnetic phone mount. Listen to music in the shower. But just take the door, put the top 2 rollers on while it's outside in the garage, carry it in here and drop it on the bar. And then put the bottom 2 rollers on and it starts sliding around. I've got it set where it rides in this track. And then you can't see the other track is under that weight there, but the other track is here, but it never gets to that one. I tried having both of the brackets all the way to the end of the fixed panel so that it would slide out of one and into the other. But you know, the panel does have the ability to wiggle at the bottom. There's nothing attaching it. And so it was always bumping and I was afraid it was going to chip or shatter. So I took this bracket and backed it up 1/2 inch. And then I adjusted the bump stop at the top. So I still get a good overlap. I still get about 1.5 inches, 2 inches of overlap of the shower door here. But I'm not going into the track down there. It never leaves this track. So it stays in this track all the way open or all the way closed. It stays in that guide track. And all I'm doing right now is I did have to put the threshold on here. I was hoping not to. But I do get a lot of water right through here and it runs out. So this is the threshold that came with it, except for obviously I powder coated it black. But other than that, it's just right there and needs 24 hours with these batteries holding it in place and I'm able to pop that off and should be good to go. So that's a 106 inch sliding shower door for $1,800.